What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Turnbuckle Topics podcast. I'm your host, Pat Deneen, and this is my review of NXT Halloween Havoc Night 1, which took place October 24th. Enjoyable show overall, two very big surprises, two title changes, as well as we got to see the finalists for next week's NXT Women's Breakout Tournament, the babyface Kelani Jordan and the heel Lola Vice. Now, look, this is honestly a toss-up to see who could win this, be the winner of the future, really, for the NXT Women's Division. They both definitely are big parts of the future of the women's division in general. You know, one day we'll be drafted to Raw or SmackDown, that's for certain. But the reason I would give the edge to Lola Vice next week is because you can't forget that not only is she a heel, but she usually comes out with Elektra Lopez. So not to say Lola Vice can't get the job done on her own, but having that, extra person ringside could really, sway things, that's for sure. But personally, I'm pulling for Kelani Jordan and get the job done. Really hoping for her. But, without further ado, let's just get right into this review. We have a lot to talk about. Plenty of matches that took place this past week on NXT Halloween Havoc Night 1, as well as vignettes, backstage segments, interviews, etc. And at the end of this show, I'm going to be talking about next week's Night 2 of Halloween Havoc that we have to look forward to. I believe 7 matches, as it stands at this moment in time, are set for next week. I believe there are 7 matches that took place this past week as well. So evens out. So let's get right to it. It opened up with a band by the name of New Year's Day. Never heard of them. They performed their hit single, Vampire. They were okay, if we're being honest here. And then we got to see the hosts for Halloween Havoc. Shotzi, she was Pinhead from Hellraiser. And we saw Scarlett, she was Marie Antoinette. Both looked great, and kudos to both of those women who looked phenomenal throughout the duration of this 2-hour show. They changed outfits at least 3 or 4 times, different costumes. So, again, fantastic look for both of them. Anyway, they started off with a women's match. It was a Devil's Playground match where we saw Roxanne Perez making her way out dressed in Freddy Krueger-inspired gear, little Nightmare on Elm Street, perhaps. And it brought me back to a time, and it was even surfacing on the internet the last couple of days, who wore it better, right? Because Alexa Bliss also dressed up in that whole Freddy Krueger getup a few years back. So I'll be honest, they both look great in their own right. So Roxanne, on this very night, it worked out because she got the win going up against Kiana James, who was somewhat wearing Halloween-inspired gear. It wasn't any horror movie type of deal, but she was wearing some orange, black, and white gear. Again, both women looked phenomenal in their own rights, absolutely stunning. And this was a fun one. They didn't waste any time. They got started immediately. Physical matchup from start to finish. We saw a side Russian leg sweep by Roxanne Perez to Kiana onto the kitty slide on the outside. Again, Devil's Playground. And which is also kind of funny, talking about, Alexa Bliss, right? Dressing up as Freddy Krueger, much like Roxanne Perez with the whole playground, right? Didn't she have that whole little playground set up the last couple of years when she aligned herself with Bray Wyatt and stuff? So that's pretty cool. So we saw a brutal side Russian leg sweep that was kind of funny because as funny as the spot was, Kiana went down very hard, but Kiana had something to say about that. Shortly thereafter, Kiana James power bombed Roxanne onto a metal garbage can. That looked brutal. And then shortly after that, we saw Roxanne pull a trick up her sleeve that typically Kiana James would pull, right? Typical heel tactic. And Roxanne hit Kiana with her handbag that we found out post-match had a brick in it. So it was shattered to pieces. We got to see afterwards, after the fact. And following that, Roxanne hits her finisher, the Pop Rocks, on Kiana James for the 1-2-3 on the ringside mat on the outside. So again, very enjoyable match. It was fun. It was a good opening match for Night 1 of Halloween Havoc, that's for sure. And so that was pretty much that. After that, we moved to a pre-taped interview, it seems, with Vic Joseph from the commentary team with Carmelo Hayes. Now, this was interesting for a variety of reasons. Now, Vic asks Mello if he was the one who attacked his friend Trick Williams last week prior to their match for a chance at the NXT Championship, right? I believe it was a fatal 4-way that was initially scheduled with Dijak, Baron Corbin, Carmelo Hayes, and Trick Williams. Of course, it ended up being a triple threat, being that Trick Williams was unable to compete. And so what he had to say about that, Mello, that is he says, look, they both wanted the title, but to attack my best friend, that's crazy. Why would I ever do that? Vic asks about facing Dragunov again, and what does he have to do differently as a challenger this time? Again, this is going to be part 3. Right back in July, Carmelo Hayes successfully defended his NXT Championship against Dragunov at the Great American Bash. Just a few weeks back, we got to see them two again face for the second time at NXT No Mercy, where Dragunov got the job done, became the new NXT champion. And here's the rubber match, right? The third and final match, perhaps, between the two, which should be very exciting. So getting back to the question that was posed by Vic Joseph, Hayes then asks How do you beat one of the best? That is what he has to ask himself. It is not a physical or mental thing, it is an emotional thing. He has to know what is his motivation, not just the NXT title itself, but the title of him, in capital letters, HIM, as he often refers to himself the past few years. Realistically, since 2021, when he first entered NXT, winning that men's breakout tournament, right? And then shortly thereafter, stepping up to Adam Cole when he was still with NXT. And a little ode to what was the better part of 2 decades ago when John Cena emerged on the scene on SmackDown, right? When he confronted Kurt Angle, the whole ruthless aggression bit. I know my wrestling junkies all remember that. And he pretty much did the same thing with Adam Cole a few years ago at the center of that ring by slapping him, much like Cena did to Kurt Angle. So that was cool. And from that very moment in time, you know, he has every right to believe he is him. He's a 2-time North American champion, former NXT champion, of course. And so he's done a lot in his 2.5 years in NXT. So getting back to the his statement here, the title of him, he says, how can he be him without a title? You know, losing that championship earlier in the month. He said, did he come here to be second best? There are no ifs or doubts. There are no asterisks here. So Vic then asks, what if Trick was in that fatal 4-way last week? Would Hayes still be the number one contender? Hayes immediately responded with, yes, absolutely. When push comes to shove, he has to do what he has to do. Hayes then leaves the interview, but Vic Joseph had more questions for him. You know, overall, let's get back to the beginning part of this interview as far as, was it Carmelo Hayes that was the one who attacked his best friend Trick Williams? Is he feeling some type of way? The crowd has really been on Trick's side the last few months, you know, when he makes his way out, whoop that Trick and so on. His very short tenure when he won at NXT No Mercy, beating Dom Mysterio, becoming that North American champion for the better part of, 48, 72 hours or so. And so, look, momentum's certainly on his side. He had a great month, racked up a lot of wins, Trick Williams. And honestly, he's great on the mic. You know, I've really learned to like him these past couple of months. Always knew he would be good, just needed some work in the ring. But on the microphone, he's pretty flawless. He's got a great personality. But anyway, you know, Melo's whole demeanor raises some eyebrows here. You know, I'm not going to put it past him that he may have done this. A lot of people during this show we'll talk about throughout here, Braun Breaker, even Scarlett, and Shotzi referred to Carmelo as the one who was, you know, the attacker of Trick Williams. So makes you wonder. I have a funny feeling it was him, but we'll get to that and we'll find out more maybe next week. If it was him or not. So here in this next segment, we have Scarlett and Shotzi at the Ouija board with Metaphor, of course, Jakara Jackson, Lash Legend, Oro Mensah, and Noam Dar, right? So Scarlett says Noam Dar will be on a big journey for fame and prizes. Noam then mentions what he did with Frazier, Nathan Frazier, that is. She then tells him to hold what he cherishes closely. Noam says it is all hocus pocus and nonsense. Now we see Akira Tozawa show up. Akira Tozawa's been making a lot of appearances as of recent. As I said on the most recent Raw review, he's been coming out with Alpha Academy lately, even showing up ringside with Maxine Dupree and stuff, so good for him. And now he's even penciled into NXT television. You know, they like a little comedic action here with Akira Tozawa, and I get it. He is funny. So Akira Tozawa takes the Heritage Cup when they're not looking. Nobody had noticed it, you know, had it disappear from beside them during this segment. So it ends with Dar and company beside themselves due to it missing, and we'll get to that later on as this show progresses. Now here we have the debut of Lexis King, formerly known as Brian Pillman Jr. on the independent scene, AEW, the last couple of years. So this has been interesting the past couple weeks, better part of a month, with all these vignettes and video packages they've been showing on the regular programming, showing the highlights of Brian Pillman, his father, you know, and WCW and his days with the Bengals and so on. So it was very compelling stuff, really. So we finally got to see his in-ring debut on NXT at Halloween Havoc Night 1. He was going up against Dante Chen. Now, this was a very impressive debut. I'll be honest, just from his appeal, you know, his look has changed drastically, in my opinion, from how he's even presented himself on AEW. It's much more cleaner. Looks like the hair is a little more blonde, a little better taken care of. His beard looks phenomenal. It looks like it's painted on. So he's definitely got an edge to him. He's certainly a heel, that's for sure. And his presentation was good. It was on point. His ring work throughout the match was also very good. Fast forwarding to the end of this match, Lexis King hit a DDT while Chen was draped off the middle rope, then picked up the pinfall victory. So it was a solid debut for him. And post-match, he says, "My way, my life." So look, he's trying to certainly separate himself from his father. Unfortunately, the untimely passing of his father, it's been over 25 years already. It's crazy. He passed so young, but I do understand why he's being rebranded, and hopefully this will give him the momentum he needs to get to where he needs to be. Again, he had a solid indie run, and then with AEW, it definitely didn't go the way he would have liked. Again, being with the Varsity Blondes, Griff Garrison, their manager or valet was Julia Hart, which out of the three, she certainly thrived the most. Shout out to Julia Hart too. I know a couple of weeks ago she got married on Friday the 13th, so that's pretty neat. But she's done a great job the last year and a half with the House of Black. So, while she was with the Varsity Blondes, it was kind of whatever, but that certainly propelled her when she became heel and stuff, joining Malachi Black and company. So yeah, that was pretty much that in a nutshell. And again, he's separating himself as much as he can from his father, Brian Pillman. So here we have Chase U. They're talking with Thea Hale and JC Jane. JC Jane assures them no one will be throwing in any towels tonight on their behalf. They're going up against the family for the NXT Tag Team Championships later in the night. Tony D and Stax, that is. They've been champions for a couple of months now. And during this segment, Tony D and Stax, as a matter of fact, they walk in and they briefly talk with Chase U, again, ahead of their showdown later in the night. Wasn't much to that whole segment, just a little teaser of what's to come. So now here we had a semifinal match for the women's breakout tournament. Again, as I said earlier in the show, Kiana Jordan going one-on-one with Arianna Grace. It was a decent match. It was okay. The way this ended, Jordan hit a split-legged moonsault off the top rope for the win. Again, with this win, she advances to the finals of the NXT Women's Breakout Tournament. Good for her. Certainly pulling for her to win and defeat Lola Vice. Lola's match was later in the night, which we'll mention in just a little bit. Now here we have Von Wagner. He was injured by Bron Breakker probably, 4 or 5 weeks ago. Pretty viciously, and he's been nursing that injury ever since. So this is the Von Wagner Road to Recovery bit. And this latest video showed Von Wagner's road to recovery. He asked his manager, Mr. Stone, why he took a match to go up against Bron Breakker next week, night 2 of Halloween Havoc. I mean, it's absurd. It's bizarre, right? And even though Mr. Stone, when he was in Impact and on the Indies, and on another note, right before joining WWE just as a manager a few years ago, he can go with the best of them. But what I will say is that Bron Breakker is a different breed. So it's a tall task. But anyway, he asked Mr. Stone why he took this match with Bron Breakker next week. Seems bonkers, absolutely nuts. As crazy as Akira Tozawa wanting a match with Bronson Reed on Raw just the night prior. He says he just wants to get one slap to get the smile off of Bron's face. He calls Von Wagner his friend, which, Von obviously liked hearing. And Von started working harder to recover during this video. Hearing that from Mr. Stone gave him a little, even though he probably thinks the decision was crazy too, it probably gave him that confidence like, wow, this recovery is all worth it, fighting and getting back to where I need to be. And I have a friend in need who's probably going to get laid flat in record time next week. But still, that's besides the point, right? It's the thought that counts. So again, Stone tells Von next week is for him. And so that was pretty much as far as that whole road to recovery segment went. Next up, we got to see the two hosts again, Shotzi and Scarlett. New Halloween costumes. We see Shotzi as Edward Scissorhands and Scarlett as a vampire. Now, they plugged their show on WWE's YouTube channel. Personally, I've never seen it. Apparently, Chamber of Horrors is what it's called, and it's a whole series. Shortly thereafter, the Creed brothers and Ivy Nile made their way out. They talk about Angel and Umberto costing them their chance at the NXT Tag Team titles. They say they want to smash them next week. They want to have a match on night 2 of Halloween Havoc. And Shotzi likes the idea, but she says she doesn't think it should be a normal match. Not at all. So Scarlett says they should let the wheel decide, which is what happened. They spin the wheel, and it is determined that the match will be a tables, ladders, and scares match. The whole theme with this Halloween bit next week. So that's what we'll see. Tables, ladders, and scares match between the Creed brothers and Angel and Umberto. Speaking of tag teams, here we had the NXT World Tag Team Championships. We have the families, Tony D and Stax, defending their titles against Chase U. Now, before I go through this match, again, as I said at the start of the show, there were 2 title changes, and I believe there were only 2 title matches, so you know where this is going. And I was just as surprised with this as I was for the main event, that the family dropped their titles. Not to say Chase U's undeserving. Good for them. They are certainly the underdogs here. But I would have liked to see a little bit longer of a reign for the family. But anyway, Chase U makes their way out. Andre Chase, Duke Hudson, they were the winners of the Bada Bing, Bada Boom Battle Royale last week, putting them in this position. This was a great match. It was, even though it wasn't the ending I would have liked, it was a great match. There was an NXT chant throughout the crowd during this match. So they were really into it, the fans there. There wasn't a dull moment. There was a lot going on. Blink of an eye, you probably missed 2 or 3 spots going by that quickly. And towards the end, we see a panicked JC Jane on the outside alongside Thea Hale. They were there for Chase U. Now, you got to remember that Andre Chase and Duke Hudson, flat out baby faces, right? And Thea Hale has slowly but surely become, a bit of a heel, if you will, joining JC Jane. I find it interesting that JC Jane and Thea Hale are continuing to align themselves with Chase U, because I thought for sure a few weeks back when Thea Hale got new theme music and was wearing all black and leaving the whole Chase U get up cheerleader type of deal, much like, Julia Hart, who I was just mentioning, that I thought that was it, that she was going to the dark side with JC Jane, those toxic attraction vibes, right? And they were just going to do their own thing, but they've been accompanying them, but still in a heel capacity. So anyway, we get to see that in just a little bit. We see a panicked JC Jane on the outside who hands Andre Chase a foreign object to cheat, while Thea Hale was tending to Duke Hudson on the floor. Now, Chase refused to cheat. He pushes this weapon to the outside, and Andre Chase continues to fight on. I thought for sure him passing up this opportunity, the family were going to get the job done here. That wasn't the case. But when Tony D hits the ropes, he inadvertently knocks JC Jane to the ground. He then turns around immediately to check on her well-being. Of course, not as much as a bruiser he could be. He knocked the lady off the rope, wanted to see if she was okay. And that ended up costing him. Andre Chase rolled Tony D up, getting the pin for the win. Again, very unexpected. I was shocked. I had to pick my jaw up from the floor. And new NXT Tag Team Champions, Chase U, Andre Chase, Duke Hudson. Congrats to them. Again, not the outcome I was personally hoping for, but hey, it is what it is. Great match. And we'll see how their title reign goes. Will they be transitional champions? I could certainly see that. I do not see a long title reign for Chase U. It's more about the chase, pun intended. They got the gold, and we'll see what happens. Can the family win it back? I would love to see that. Really, not to say the Creed brothers or Angel and Umberto don't deserve it, and all the other tag teams in NXT. I mean, I would like to see Angel and Umberto win those titles eventually. That's who I was hoping the family would drop to at some point in time. Not so much Chase U, but we'll see, especially because they're both kind of, even though, Tony D and Stacks, they have their heel tendencies still, they're not full-blown heels like they were a year ago or even 6 months ago. They're slowly but surely have become the babyface tag team, or one of the babyface tag teams in NXT. Chase U certainly being a babyface tag team as well. So going from face to face, I was a little bit surprised with that. So next up, we had a brief segment. It's called Hard Hitting Truths with Nathan Frazier. And during this segment, pretty much to sum it up shortly, is this former NXT Heritage Cup champion that lost, obviously, to Noam Dar about a month or so ago. He goes on to challenge Dominic Mysterio for a shot at the NXT North American Championship at night 2 of Halloween Havoc next week. And so that's what we have. I am really pulling for Nathan Frazier. Do I think he's going to win? Probably not. Being that, Judgment Day continues to be such decorated champions. Rhea Ripley, the Women's World Champion. Dominic Mysterio, 2-time North American Champion. Finn Balor and Senior Money in the Bank, Damian Priest, 2-time Undisputed WWE Tag Team Champions. So, when they both dropped within the month, Dom and Finn and Damian Priest looked like, all right, they're slowly but surely taking the gold off of them, and maybe Rhea Ripley will eventually lose soon. Didn't really see anybody that she would lose to, but that wasn't the case. So we won't have to worry about that anytime soon. They just want to give all 3 of those gentlemen another reign as champion to amp up the accolades in the history books. So that's that. We'll see. Certainly pulling for Frazier to get the job done, but I think there'll be, again, foul play for Dominic to retain. I'm sure Mommy, Rhea Ripley, will be there by his side to make sure he squeaks out the victory. So we've seen so many times before, right? So now we have a lights out match between Gigi Dolin and Blair Davenport. These two have been going back and forth for weeks, beating the hell out of each other, whether it's in the ring, in the locker room area, in the hallways, wherever. So here we have the NXT Halloween Havoc co-hosts, Shotzi and Scarlett, who officially introduced this next match. And this is a no count out pinfall or submission. But overall, this was a solid match. It was a really good one, very physical, as most would expect if you're familiar with these two, and especially the feud that they've had brewing amongst one another. This match wraps up with Blair Davenport heading out to the floor. She's ringside as she reaches under the ring and pulls out a table. Crowd goes wild, loud pop for that. Davenport hits Gigi Dolin with a powerful Falcon Arrow through the table onto the floor for a loud "holy shit" chant. Fans were losing it in the stands. And then Davenport brings Dolin in the ring, hits her finish for the victory. So Blair got it done. Will that be the end of these two women's feud? Perhaps. I want to say Blair Davenport's up 2-1 in this feud, so that very well may have been their rubber match. And so if that's it, I'm ready for them to move on. But again, if this is not the end, much like I was discussing earlier with Roxanne and Kiana James, if they continue on with their feud as well, I'd be here for either one of them to continue on. So we have Mackenzie Mitchell. She interviews Baron Corbin, who complained about doing everything in his power to win last week's main event, that triple threat match for the number one contender spot for the NXT Championship on night 2 of Halloween Havoc. And Mackenzie wondered if everything, including attacking Trick Williams, is something, he was guilty for, perhaps. And he said if he did attack him, he'll do it to his face. Corbin said that goes for anyone. It could be Dijak, Axiom, even Wesley. So it could be any one of them that could have very well done this as well. So ask around, right? It could be a jealous babyface like Carmelo Hayes, right? Slowly making his way to heel, perhaps, maybe on NXT or maybe before he goes to the main roster sometime very soon. If he goes and joins Lashley and the Profits, who have seemingly turned heel recently, he'd be a great fit on his own or with them on SmackDown. The Vic Joseph, he sits down with NXT champion Ilya Dragunov, as he sat down with Carmelo earlier in the show. Now he's speaking with the champ for this title match. And he says, how's it feel to go from chasing the title to being the champion now? Now you're defending it against Melo, unlike the first 2 times they met in the ring. Dragunov talked about moving from Russia to Germany and his child holding his NXT championship, saying that those moments are what motivates him as the NXT champion. Now, Dragunov went on to tell Vic Joseph that he understood that Hayes and him will have another classic, but promised to break Hayes again to retain his championship. Dragunov also stated this was 30 years of sacrifice now with visible proof holding this NXT title. And this is next week's main event, of course, for Halloween Havoc Night 2. So this will be a good one. I put my money completely on Ilya Dragunov retaining, being that he just won the title at the beginning of the month. So they're not going to disrespect somebody such as him to have less than a month's title reign. I could see him being champion going into WrestleMania 40 weekend, right? Stand and deliver easily. But definitely, if he is to lose before April, it definitely will be sometime in 2024. He'll be champion for the remainder of 2023, long story short. So now we're backstage. We see Shotzi and Scarlett in different Halloween costumes. They're the twins from Psycho, as I referred to earlier in the show. They did a fantastic job, not just transitioning from one costume to the next, but by looking great at the very same time. So they approach Carmelo Hayes and say all cards point to it being him. Now he goes and says, you mean win the NXT championship next week, perhaps? They say, no, but that he was the one who attacked Trick Williams last week. He says he isn't buying that and walks off. They giggled eerily, of course. They're the twins from Psycho. What do you expect? But even if they weren't, Scarlett and Shotzi, they both have that weird, very strange mystique about them regardless, just as they're regular, everyday WWE characters into itself, babyface or heel. That's just how they roll. But anyway, again, all signs pointing to it being Melo, perhaps. Maybe we're swerved at the end of the day. Maybe it wasn't Melo, and maybe it's some up-and-coming heel, right? Or babyface that just turned heel. Maybe it is Wesley. Wesley is a perfect candidate to turn heel any day. As good as he is as a babyface, had an amazing NXT North American Championship run earlier this year. He would be just as vicious as a heel. I could see it. Next up, we had Sarah Schreiber, who came out of absolute obscurity. We haven't seen Sarah in what feels like eons. She asked Tiffany Stratton a question, but then Stratton gets interrupted by somebody who is dressed as her for Halloween. And let me just tell you, she did a great job doing so. Fallon Henley usually comes out with Briggs and Jensen, their manager, valet, call her what you want. She can wrestle her butt off as well. Looked just like Tiffany Stratton, really did. So this was pretty cool seeing the two go back and forth here. They had a They did more than speak, that's for sure. But she was speaking just like Tiffany Stratton. It's pretty good, must admit. But Stratton was visibly annoyed, and Henley said, "You can go now, Toodles," excusing her, dismissing her rather, just like Tiffany Stratton would. Tiffany Stratton was not happy about it. She goes and attacks Fallon Henley. Several women in the back helped separate the two. If I'm not mistaken, I believe they are also scheduled for a match to take place next week, night 2 of Halloween Havoc. I'll get to that at the end, but I'm pretty sure those two are set to square up. That should be a good one. And honestly, she should come out dressed as Tiffany Stratton yet again. I mean, it is going to be Halloween, right? So what a better time than then to do so. And yeah, she had the voice down and everything. If you didn't get to see it, definitely check out the WWE or NXT YouTube and look for that segment. That's for sure. So this was the other semifinal match for the NXT Women's Breakout Tournament. We had Lola Vice going up against her opponent, who I've never seen yet. I've never seen her before. I did not see her in the earlier rounds of this tournament, and in general, she's relatively new to TV. Because this NXT Women's Breakout Tournament are basically all the newbies, all the rookies within the last year or so, and that's looking at it now, the two rookies that have been showcased the most, which makes the most sense the past few months, were Kelani Jordan and Lola Vice. So those two being in the finals really shouldn't have come as any surprise to us out of the 8 women that were in this tournament from the very beginning. But her name was Karmen Petrovic. She was pretty good, has a good look, pretty good wrestler as well. So I'm curious to see where they go with her in the near future. And jumping to the conclusion, Petrovic went for a roundhouse, but it was telegraphed. Vice ducked and then hit a spinning roundhouse kick of her own that led to the 1-2-3. Post match on the outside of the ring, both finalists Kelani Jordan and Lola Vice posed outside by the table by the ring. It was where the contract was or whatever that had the whole NXT Women's Breakout Tournament bit. So that was pretty neat. And yeah, so not a whole heck of a lot to say about this match. Again, both these semifinal matches were kind of blah, if I'm being honest, but next week should definitely deliver. Looking forward to it. Backstage, they show Chase University celebrate as the new NXT Tag Team Champions. Hudson says the title and the trophy are going to put him over the carry-on limit. JC Jane said it was going to be different this time, and now they're winners. The Women's Tag Team Champions, Piper Niven and Chelsea Green, showed up. Chelsea Green dressed as Little Red Riding Hood, as Piper Niven was dressed as the Big Bad Wolf. Gotta say, I was very impressed with their get-up. Their Halloween costumes looked fantastic. And JC Jane said the two don't even go here. Green said she was going to place a formal complaint. She asked for Shawn Michaels' office, and Jane said they would direct them there and also get themselves a Women's Tag Team Championship match, which was made official, rather. And again, I also believe that match was added to night 2 of Halloween Havoc as well. Now, this is very believable that JC Jane and Thea Hale could dethrone Chelsea and Piper Niven. Those titles don't have to stay on Raw or SmackDown anymore. They were merged a few months back. Again, as I said in the most recent Raw review, when Ronda and Shayna defeated Alba Fire and Isla Dawn, who came up from NXT, were drafted to SmackDown, they merged them over the summer. So it could happen. I probably would lean towards Chelsea Green and Piper Niven retaining. But hey, it could very well happen. And it would make a lot of sense because, let's be honest, they really haven't showcased Alba Fire and Isla Dawn all that much on SmackDown since losing those titles. Was it been 3.5 months ago already? And so we haven't seen them. They've had a couple video packages. That's it. And Monday Night Raw, as far as that's concerned, Caden Carter, Katana Chance, we've seen them more backstage the last 2 months than we've seen them in the ring. That's for sure. So the other tag team, as I mentioned, I'd like to see is Indy Hartwell and Candice LeRae on Raw, babyface, or if they want to turn heel, so be it. They could be a tag team on Raw. They've been former NXT Women's Tag Team Champions before, a few years back. Why not? But again, they haven't been put together. Candice is currently in a match with Xia Li, planned for Raw next Monday. Indy Hartwell will probably get a match against Xia Li too at some point. So it looks like they're not pushing them in a tag team sense. So while they're still kind of unsure of what they're doing as far as Raw and SmackDown, the women's tag team division, they might as well drop these championships off in NXT. Why not give it to Thea Hale and JC Jane? This way, the men of Chase U and the women of Chase U can both be tag team champions in their own right. And we all know that Chelsea Green, as entertaining as she's been these past couple of months, with Carmella, right, and then with Sonya Deville winning the titles, and now with Piper Niven the past month or two, it's been great having her as WWE Women's Tag Team Champion. But at the very same time, Chelsea Green got the type of personality where she does not need a title to be relevant. Her personality, her charisma, her character speaks for itself. Gold for her is just the icing on the cake. I think she's approaching 100 days in the next week or so. By the time they have this match next Tuesday on Halloween, will definitely be upwards of 100 days. But either way, if they win or not a big deal, in my opinion. If it goes to NXT, so be it. Let them have some good matchups there for them, because they definitely, off the bat, I'm not sure, maybe Jakara Jackson, Lash Legend, and there's got to be a couple other tag teams, Lola Vice and Elektra Lopez, that we can see that could vie consistently for these tag titles if Thea and JC are to win these. So we'll see. Speaking of Lash and Jakara, again, we get to see Metaphor now complaining to security about their stolen trophy. Lash Legend then showed them a photo of Akira Tozawa on her phone posing with that Heritage Cup trophy. Says, or Akira Tozawa went and said, "If you want it, come get it." I believe he was at a haunted house or a haunted mansion or something like that. Like I said, Akira Tozawa, he's great. WWE, they're not quite sure what to do with him. They haven't been sure what to do with him for years now, ever since like 205 Live and the Cruiserweights kind of slowly but surely faded to the background. Again, they always look to put him in comedic stuff, Alpha Academy on Raw, NXT segments like this. I'm not totally against it. I feel like he should obviously be pushed in a better spotlight, but he's not the only one, right? We could go on for days about men and women that should be pushed in numerous companies, but that, I guess something's better than nothing. So here we have Carmelo Hayes. He was watching something on his phone in the locker room area. He glared at someone who was entering the room, ends up being Breaker. And Breaker says, "A man with a trick up his sleeve," pun intended, Trick Williams, right? Breaker said they know they're going to be fighting for the top spot for decades to come, him and Mello. But he's proved he can do it, and Hayes proved it by taking out his friend, Trick Williams, last week. This is what Braun Breaker is insinuating. Again, everybody, I want to say everybody, but a lot of people have been saying that, hey, Carmelo Hayes is the one, in fact, who did this to his friend, Trick Williams. Hayes then glared at him and refuted the insinuation. Breaker enticed him with a feud going forward. And, again, just the whole idea here of, is it Braun Breaker that planted that seed in Carmelo's head? What was it, 3-4 weeks ago, before they had that match in NXT where they had Heyman and Cena in their respective corners, about being a little bit more aggressive or like a heel, maybe even doing so much as taking it out on a friend or former friend in Trick Williams. He's getting all the spotlight, doing his own thing. He said, "Where was Trick Williams, when you were, right after you lost at NXT No Mercy, you were there for his championship pat on the back when he won the North American Championship against Dom Mysterio. But where was he for you? Where was he to console you after you lost to Dragunov in that brutal main event match?" And I think, Breaker has slowly been breaking, Carmelo Hayes mentally, right? Breaking him down and making him think twice about his friendship with Trick. And maybe he's letting that overtake him. And maybe, again, that could be another reason why Mello potentially attacked Trick Williams last week. So now it's main event time. We have Becky Lynch, the NXT Women's Champion for the better part of upwards of 40 days or so, going up against Lyra Valkyria. Now, this NXT Women's Championship match, I've been looking forward to it for quite some time. So has Lyra, that's for sure. She's mentioned weeks prior that, Becky Lynch is somebody that she's looked up to for years. Both of them being Irish women in this profession, and what Becky has accomplished, main eventing WrestleMania 35, being one of the three women, the first three women to ever do so, and coming out on top as champion. Becky, 2 belts, Raw and SmackDown Women's Champion when all was said and done at MetLife Stadium. So all that and all she's accomplished has really and truly inspired her. So there are numerous reasons why Valkyria was looking forward to this match. And don't get me wrong, Becky Lynch was also looking forward to this as well. Now, prior to the start of this match, they showed Jade Cargill enter onto the concourse above, onto a throne. There was 2 servants removing her big green coat as she sat and watched this main event match. Obviously, like Jade Cargill or not, she's certainly something to look at, that's for sure. So look, I had high expectations going into this. Knew it would be good. Knew that they were both more than ready I kind of wish this was on a bigger stage. I get it. It's Halloween Havoc, a NXT themed show. It's, night one. It's in the WWE Performance Center, Orlando, Florida, and so on. And it's the best they could do for NXT outside of being at a actual arena for a live premium live event, like a bigger one. Once in a while, they'll travel on the road from state to state, and I kind of wish it was in a big arena. But nonetheless, it doesn't take away from these women, being ready and taking it to one another. It delivered and then some. Now, late in the match, we see Becky Lynch hit her manhandle slam, goes for the cover, only for Lyra Valkyria to kick out. Again and again and again. Lynch was visibly frustrated throughout, where it looked like she was going to put Lyra away numerous times. The fans, again, this ain't the first time they chanted this. They were chanting "Holy shit" yet again. They did it earlier in the night, and after this last kick out, it was so loud that they had to edit it out of the broadcast. The "Holy shit" chants. Valkyria suddenly rolls Becky Lynch up, miraculously pulls off the upset to become the NXT Women's Champion, and I was even more surprised than Chase U defeating the family earlier in the night for those NXT Tag Team Championships. I said, wow, it wasn't that I thought that Lyra was incapable. I just didn't think they were ready to take it off of Becky Lynch yet. But you know what? If there was someone that was going to dethrone Becky Lynch, I'm glad it was Lyra. Now, the only thing I worry about is Lyra being a transitional champion. I like Jade Cargill, don't get me wrong. And even if it isn't Jade, I don't want to see anybody dethrone Lyra in a quick fashion. Be champion at least for the remainder of the year, right? The next 2 months. At least make it to January 1st, and then we could talk. Whether it's at New Year's Eve or somewhere that she drops it. But we'll see what happens. Jade Cargill, they're pushing heavily. They're teasing her on Raw, NXT, SmackDown. We're not quite sure where she's going to end up. It seems like she may be exclusive to Raw, but then she shows up on all the other shows as well. So, the biggest takeaway from this is, and another reason why I thought Becky might be retaining is I thought Becky might be defending her NXT championship in the near future against the likes of a Jade Cargill. But the good thing about this is that there's no title on the line, so what I'm hoping for is this. Jade stays exclusive to Raw. Jade and Becky Lynch, Jade Cargill and Becky Lynch have a feud now that is strictly something that happens on Monday Night Raw, regardless who comes out the victor in that. If it is Jade, that'd be a hell of a statement. Becky putting Jade over in her very first feud in WWE, that'd be huge. But again, no need for any championships to be involved here. Jade does not need to be getting into this NXT Women's title picture right now. Leave it for the rest of the women that have been there and that are doing their thing exclusively in NXT, trying to make a way up, make a name for themselves. And again, it looks like they're going to push Jade to the top anyway, sooner than later. So just let her do her thing on Raw or SmackDown. Not to say Jade can't compete in NXT. We all know that, there, like it or not, there's many women on the NXT roster that are actually better than Jade. If we're being honest, in ring. I get it. Jade has an amazing presentation. She is outstanding on the microphone. Her wrestling is getting better over time. She worked with Bryan Danielson the better part of the last couple of years in AEW, and I'm sure that they're doing a great job with her at the Performance Center as well right now. But there's many women that are ready for Raw or SmackDown on NXT right now. So look, wherever Jade goes, she'll have a great feud. No titles needed right now, to say the very least. And if it's Becky and Jade, hey, I'm here for it. Let's see what happens. So again, when she rolled up Becky to get this win, the crowd was shocked, loud pop, and Valkyria was clearly on cloud nine. Lynch presented Lyra Valkyria with the title. Big hug after their hard-fought battle. Jade Cargill, even though she comes off as the vicious, no-nonsense heel, pretty much she was up there, and she even showed some emotion watching on from her throne. I don't know if she was actually clapping, but she was, you could see in her face like, wow, what a moment, right? What a moment. So the man leaves the ring for Valkyria, who ends the show celebrating her shocking victory. Again, one Irish superstar to another. The torch has been passed on in NXT, so we'll see who her first title defense will be up against. Lyra Valkyria, post-match, this was after NXT went off air, she goes on to say this is 9 years in the making, and she'll probably be in this moment for another 9 years, she says. Not just becoming NXT Women's Champion, but defeating someone she's looked up to. Amazing. You really can't make this stuff up. An idol, of hers during this whole process of her becoming a professional wrestler making her way to NXT UK and NXT, and better believe she'll one day definitely be on Raw or SmackDown. That's for certain. So again, we saw the 2 title changes in one night. Amazing stuff. Post-match, Becky Lynch tweeted, "The future is bright," with the Irish flag. Again, both of them being Irish. That was really cool. And for my Impact fans out there, Impact turning to TNA very soon. Former NXT UK competitor. They both were in NXT UK together, that being Lyra, Valkyria, and Killer Kelly. Killer Kelly is one half of the Impact Knockouts Women's Tag Team Champions alongside Masha Slamovich. If you don't watch Impact or TNA, folks, so be it. But I've been watching the last year or two, and it's only been getting better. Complete side note. I get it. There's more than enough wrestling with WWE, NXT, AEW, and so on. But Impact Thursday nights, check them out. So Killer Kelly, she was in attendance for this match, and she tweeted, "Proud is an understatement. From wrestling each other in Ireland outside, freezing cold, on a ring with no pads for 20 minutes, to watch her defeat Becky Lynch to become the new NXT Women's Champion. She deserves the world. I love you," at Real Valkyria being her Twitter handle. And so that was that, and 2 amazing pictures of Lyra Valkyria and Killer Kelly post-match, hoisting up that championship title of hers now. So that was really cool to see. What great friends they are, and so on. I think it was on Killer Kelly's birthday, if I'm not mistaken, or around there, because I remember her tweeting leading up to this, saying what a birthday gift it would be for me to see, my friend Lyra win that NXT Women's Championship from Becky Lynch at Halloween Havoc. So that was really, really cool. I love to see stuff like that, that realism in sports in general. But, being that I cover professional wrestling specifically, I love to see that across the board. So as far as next week's NXT Halloween Havoc, Night 2, these are the matches we have to look forward to. Again, as it stands right now, 7 matches. I'm sure that's all there will be. I'm pretty sure that's what we had on Night 1 here. I kind of lost count. But next week, we have the NXT Women's Breakout Tournament Finals. Kelani Jordan going up against Lola Vice. Again, the X Factor here could be Elektra Lopez being ringside for that match with Lola Vice. Then we have the singles match for the NXT Championship. Ilya Dragunov defending against Carmelo Hayes. This is Dragunov Hayes Part 3. Probably their final matchup in this feud. And should be a good one. This should be as quick as a bathroom break. Mr. Stone versus Braun Breaker. This will be over in the blink of an eye, that's for sure. So don't expect this one to go longer than 10 seconds. And then we have a spin the wheel, make the deal match. That is a tables, ladders, and scares match, as I referred to earlier in the show, between the Creed brothers, Brutus and Julius Creed, going up against Angel Garza, Humberto Carrillo, Ivy Nile, of course, in the corner of the Creed brothers, right? The Diamond Mine. And match number 5, we have a singles match for the NXT North American Championship. Dirty Dominic Mysterio defending his championship, probably be ringside with Rhea Ripley, Mommy, Women's World Champion, going up against Nathan Frazier. Then match number 6, we have a tag team match for the WWE Women's Tag Team Championships. Chelsea Green and Piper Niven going up against Chase University's Thea Hale and JC Jane. I'm sure Andre Chase and Duke Hudson will be ringside to cheer them on. That's what they do, right? They have the whole Chase U section out there in the crowd, and at the Performance Center as well, wearing their red sweaters. And the 7th and final match is a singles match. Tiffany Stratton going up against Tiffany Stratton. Now, Tiffany Stratton going up against Fallon Henley, but let's hope that Fallon comes out dressed as Tiffany Stratton for the 2nd consecutive week on Halloween. It would be great. She did a great job looking like her, sounding like her, and why not? This will be like, The Undertaker versus The Undertaker in the mid-90s. I remember you guys remember that. The real Undertaker was wearing the black and purple versus the fake Undertaker, who was wearing the Undertaker's original getup from the very early 90s with the black and gray getup. So that's similar, right? Anyway, that is my review of NXT Halloween Havoc Night 1. Again, took place October 24th. Truly enjoyed the show. It's looking like a pretty solid card next week as well. How many title matches we got here? We got 1, 2. Okay, so just 3 title matches, but then we'll find out the winner of that breakout tournament. That's huge, because you could guarantee that whoever wins that, I believe with that contract, the breakout tournament contract, you get a championship opportunity, if I'm not mistaken. It's kind of like Money in the Bank type of deal. I believe that's how Carmelo Hayes got his first opportunity at that NXT North American Championship. I'm pretty sure that Carmelo Hayes dethroned Isaiah Swerve Scott. Swerve Strickland, of course, in AEW now, for that NXT North American Championship. So this will lead to big things. Whoever wins that, I think, regardless, even the runner-up in this Jordan versus Vice match will still have a very successful time in NXT and the main roster eventually, but I think imminent gold is for sure whoever wins this one. And so that's pretty much that, folks. But thank you for tuning in to the Turnbuckle Topics podcast. I am your host, Pat Deneen. Again, this is the Halloween Havoc Night 1 review. Looking forward to Night 2 next week for Halloween Havoc. And I'll catch you next time. Thanks for listening.